Hudhoor, today is the day of Arafah, and the Muslims, this is a very important day to them. We would like Hudhoor to address the Muslims, the Arabs, in this occasion.
I think formal address will be out of place in this.
No, I do not mean a formal address, Hudhoor, something from the heart.
Something, that's right.
Yes.
This occasion. See, Hajj is a great occasion, in fact, the greatest in the history of religion. Because although the concept of pilgrimage is found all over the world in different religions, but they seem to be preparing the minds for the ultimate. The one Hajj, which is people universally participate, and all nations, all colors, all denominations of human beings from all geographical territories come to one place, one single place. Why do not the non-Muslims see? It's one of the greatest miracles that has happened. Something which has not happened in case of any other religion. Because pilgrims or go to different places to Lourdes, etc. in the Christian world, but the pilgrimage is drawn from smaller areas to not one single center, but to so many different scattered centers. And those centers, in fact, are not pilgrimage to God. They do not represent pilgrimage to God. They represent pilgrimage to saints, dead saints, most often than not. And the ultimate purpose is to gain something out of that personal, like somebody wants to cure of a congenital disease or this and that. So all sort of superstitions are related to these pilgrimages. And in the Muslim world, unfortunately, also, there is tendency to visit graves of people, and they hold Salana Urs, they call it. That is sort of as if marriage ceremony is taking place somewhere. Urs in Urdu is related to marriage.
Which is in Arabic also.
Hujra Arusi is the first room which the newly wedded girl visits and spends the night in. That's called Hujra Arusi. So they hold Urs yearly at the graves of some saintly people. And all sorts of things happen there. And they believe that the saint will be so happy at eunuchs dancing and people playing the duff-like things and other music and all sorts of filthy things going on. Men also dance, women, shady character women also appear there. And if somebody who does not know the background of this comes from a different country and watches it, he would much rather believe that it is celebrating the birth or death of a film actress or an actor. Because what happens doesn't relate to this, relate to the piety, I mean. But also there is Qawwali. Qawwali, again utilizing the saint, so highly exaggerating his character and his qualities and his powers, etc. So these pilgrimages also are found in the Muslim world, but they have no authentic place in Islam, none whatsoever. In fact, whatever they do is contrary to Islam. But when I refer to other religions holding such, there they relate it to their faith, their religion, as if it supports them. And there is no central idea of unity of God, whereby you give expression to the belief in unity by joining hands together and gathering in one single place. So this is a great mark of distinction for the Muslim people, that it is they alone who have been blessed by Allah for this great pilgrimage which is universal in character. There is pilgrimage in Banaras, pilgrimage in other holy places, but they are all regional and in fact belong to one single people and some type of people, and it's not universal in character. Now, what I'm drawing at is now the ultimate purpose of this preparatory speech will come now. Muslims are the only people who are entrusted with the great task of unification of man. If there is one God, His creatures, all human beings, His servants, must also be unified around His name. This is the ultimate expression of unity of God. And this is the expression which was, in fact, incorporated in the prayer of Jesus Christ, or wish of Jesus Christ, that, O God, O Father who is in heaven, may your sovereignty also rule the world. May you descend from heaven also to rule the world. In Islam, this has got fulfilled. The unity of God as expressed in the heavenly, in connotation which belongs to heavenly things, is expressed in one single worship, which is Hajj, so completely and so perfectly that you can throw a challenge to the whole world, show us a thing like this, and they can't. So that means the very purpose of Khana Kaaba, the first house of God, was to unify man. It was not created for Arabs or for Iranians or for Pakistanis. It was neither created for one religion nor for another. In fact, Khana Kaaba was the first house of God created for the whole mankind. This is the message which I want to deliver to the Arab people. They should understand they are only custodians. They are so fortunate and lucky to be made the custodians by God, because it is their territory which God chose, or God's territory to which they were permitted to settle. But the point is, if they read the first verse of the Holy Quran, they will see that the house is not related to God, but is related to mankind. And they miss the point. The Holy Quran says, Inna awwala Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nasi, not wudi'a lillahi. Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nasi lalladhi bi-Bakkata. And the word Bakka is used instead of Makkah to indicate it's being very ancient. The time when Makkah was not called Makkah, it was only called Bakka. So this is the beauty of the Quran. Right in the beginning, it wants to deliver the message and strike it home to everyone that this is a house which belongs to whole mankind. It is to unify mankind that this particular house of God was built. The house of God, no doubt, but for the purpose of the people. And now, if any custodian of Mecca and Medina stops people from coming and visiting this place, they want to monopolize the blessing of this house, which was built for the sake of the whole mankind. Will it behove such people? Will it be in accordance with the Quranic expression why this was created? Now, what was forbidden, as I have already told you before, was the idolatrous practices around this house. And those practices are what is told to be completely driven off forever from this place. No more shirk to be done in any form in and around Khana Kaaba. Up to that we fully agree. And beyond that, to stop this person and that person from coming and visiting, this is playing God. This is against the purpose of Khana Kaaba. So that is the first part of my address in relation to this. After the translation is made, then I'll come to the second part, which is also very important. Now, it's another very important point which I would like to bring to the attention of all Ahmadi Muslims, Ahmadi or otherwise, Arabs or non-Arabs, that when it says Lin Nas and it calls it to be Atiq, the first idea what strikes man is, maybe it's as old as the religion of Adam. But if it were so, why did not Allah mention Adam? Nowhere is this house related to Adam. But it relates to Linnas, which means scientifically, if you pursue the history of the creation of human beings or development of human beings, right from the time when the word An-Nas could be applicable to any animal form, the building of this house could possibly be traced back to as far as that. When Nas as such, Homo sapiens in English or Latin expression, ever since human beings are created, Hayawan and Natiq term is applied. From then on, there begins the possibility of this house having been built by somebody. Right? But if it were Adam, then Hazrat Adam should have been mentioned in the Quran. No other prophet is mentioned except Hazrat Abraham, but he is also not mentioned as the pioneer builder, but the one who rebuilt it from the ruins. So the message in this is that whoever built, at that time mankind was not divided into sections, tribes, etc., or religions. Right in the very beginning, when man had achieved that quality to know God, where he was potentially prepared for receiving communion from Allah, right from that time, God organized this house, and this house was built. But the people who built were not important. They were insignificant. What they did was important. That they made this house for Allah for the sake of all the people. They did not monopolize it, they did not keep it to themselves. So the very best act, the spirit, the beauty of this intention is retained by the Holy Quran. The other irrelevant things who built are not mentioned because they were insignificant people. They were small people, just beginners, and it was not worthy to mention them. The only lesson we draw from this is that if this is the beginning, this is the very purpose of this creation, the ultimate goal of this building would be achieved only when a religion appears which can be called religion linnas. Until then, the purpose will remain unfulfilled. Because if a thing is built for nas, for the whole mankind, unless a religion appears which addresses the whole mankind as such, that house cannot acquire that central position which can occupy the very center of the whole humanity. It could only happen when Islam would appear, not otherwise. Because the only prophet who addressed the mankind as قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ إِنِّي رُسُولُ اللَّهِ إِلَيْكُمْ جَمِيعًا An-Nas. That message was delivered to Allah, to Muhammad by Allah, and he was told to spread this message, to pronounce it to the whole world. So I relate this to the first Nas and try to impress upon you that the ultimate purpose of the building of Khana Kaaba got fulfilled only at the time of Hazrat Muhammad because he was the first prophet linnas known to history. See? And other prophets were for India, for Buddhist, for some certain areas, for Ahl Kitab, for the House of Israel and this and that. They are always related to smaller denominations. So this is the great grand design, and which was to be fulfilled in the time of Islam. If you reduce it further back to smaller denominations and appropriate it, you will not be serving the cause of the Quran. This should be made the center where the man's unity will formally, ultimately, finally, not formally, finally be achieved and consummated. Another very important message which we derive from the style of the Quranic style of saying, Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nasi lalladhi bi-Bakkata. Awwala baytin is not related to God for another purpose as well, although it's understood. Everybody knows. And in another place, God mentions it clearly as well. This is the house of God. There's no doubt about it. But why in this place, in relation to its first building, the name of Allah is not given? Because there is another meaning and connotation which was intended to be contained in this expression. And this is a very interesting discovery which I have made with the help of this Quranic verse. You know, civilization began with the man learning the art of building houses and coming out of the caves or natural shades which provided shelter to all human beings, not to all animal life, and also in the beginning to human beings. So as long as humanity remained in naturally provided shelters and was incapable of building a house for themselves, this house was not built. And it was the first house ever that was built and through which man learned to live in houses. So awwala baytin, remember, the first translation in this context would be that the first ever house built for any purpose, for the sake of man, was this house. So this is why now you understand the simple style, you know.
I was going to say that it's very simple.
Very simple house, square, and this the crudest form of a house, you know, with no architectural design whatsoever. And if it is ancient, it has to be like that. But that means it was God who taught man to build houses. And this was the first house which God told them, this is how you should live, come out in the open. No longer stick to the old caves and crevices and this and that. Start living in the open. So this shows that the civilization took its root in the building of this house. That was the first symbol of civilization. So we are the oldest people who belong to this house. And this requires some responsibilities on our part. We should be more civilized than any other people in the world, shouldn't we?
Yes.
Please. Now, and again, I invite Muslim researchers and scholars to follow this step and investigate as to the age of civilization and what is the evidence of the first houses built and where. And I have no doubt in the least that they will be led by God to evidence which would prove that this was really the first house. And the only stone so far available to us for dating purposes is the stone which is called Hadhrat. If any dating is to be done, if the government of Saudi Arabia is ready for the sake of establishing the Quranic truth, invite scientists to date the age of this stone. I'm sure it will reveal its own story and reveal the beginning of the history of civilization. Why I do that, I believe in this, there is another reason for that. You see, the first house that was built was not built by ordinary stones found on earth. Now I'm going to tell the history of Hadhrat and why it is so precious. After all, it's an ordinary stone. When Hazrat Umar kissed it, he said, "What are you? Just a stone." I would never have kissed you unless I had seen Hazrat Muhammad, my holy master, to kiss you. So that's the only significance. Why should a stone be given such importance, that even Muhammad kisses that stone? That importance lies in its relation to having been specially sent by God. Because all the love of Hazrat Muhammad was directed with reference to God and with no other reference. So with the hadith of Hazrat Muhammad we understand this significance. It's not just my guesswork. I have positive proof that Hazrat Muhammad loved this stone just for this sake. Because Ahmad tells us that when this house was planned to be built, the stones came from heaven. The stones which went into its building descended from heaven. And they were white to begin with as they started, but they became charred and blackened by the sin of the earth's atmosphere. Now this is a very significant declaration, most wonderful scientific discovery in relation to this Hajar Aswad of Khana Kaaba. First of all, if it is that ancient, as the Holy Quran tells us, the sin was not yet born, because the sin is born with Sharia. And this house seems to be preceding that period, antedating that period. So that must be a reference to the atmospheric influences. Like sin chars the heart, so the atmospheric, not what you say, the dust particles or other things which make the atmosphere thick with some suspensions. That is the thing which causes mainly the charring of those meteors which enter or try to enter the earth. So this phenomenon was completely unknown to man at the time of Hazrat Muhammad. What he is saying is that the stones which started their journey from somewhere in space, they are meteoric showers on earth. They were particularly directed by God to shower here in this place, to provide the first stone for the building for the first house, to relate it to divine design. And as it entered the kasafat of earth, it was a denser atmosphere, made dense with particles and this and that, then it was charred, it blackened. The Holy Prophet uses the word because of the sin of the earth. But the sin must be understood in this context to be what we call kasafat in Arabic, or density of the atmosphere around. And this is what has been understood only now recently. Previously, people didn't know why the shooting stars have flames and why do they have a tail always in one direction. As they enter the earth, they have a tail appearing on the other side than the earth was moving. Because atmosphere is moving with the earth and the tail is left always behind. That phenomenon is only understood within the last some 100 years, 200, maybe 300 years, that when any particle or any stone or any big object from the heaven enters the atmosphere of the earth, this atmosphere of the earth is the Sama Dunya. It is well protected by Allah, and those flames which protect Satan, these are satanic interference. They protect the world from the shower of these stones is the density of the earth around. With friction, if you build heat. And the phenomenon is this, the speed with which these meteors enter the earth is so fast that as they enter the dense atmosphere, they catch fire. And more often than not, before they reach the earth, they are completely burnt out. And when they reach, they become so small at last, if they reach, that they don't cause any real damage. In your known history, you have never heard any city in the world to have been stricken by a meteor, have you? You read in the history that so many thousand years once a meteor fell in the sea, but you don't see cities destroyed. This is a protective system. So Hadhrat Muhammad must have been given this information from Allah, because nobody knew that as the stones enter the earth's atmosphere, they must be charred. Fire chars, blackens, makes soot, creates soot around. And that is the reason why it is Aswad. Aswadullah, It's being black is indicative of it's coming from heaven, and it has to be the very first stone. So the other stones were collected later on. So why were they not kissed? Because they were earthly stones. The only one remaining out of that first material, which was provided by God from heaven, is this small bit which is gradually, wearing out. So that is the significance of this, and that is why I believe that this has to be the very first house which was not only taught by Allah, the building for which was not only taught by Allah, but also material was provided by Allah from heaven. Right?
Right, Hazoor.
That all the first material of stones, not only this one.
This is the remaining one.
I believe this is the only remaining one.
Yes,
you see? That appeared from heaven.
Yes.
Here, tell them this is a positive proof that my inference is absolutely right and supported by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. If the other stones also had descended from heaven, and this was not the only one, then all should have been charred and blackened, and it should have kissed every stone. But this is a positive proof that Muhammad Rasulullah was told by Allah that this is one of those stones which came originally from Allah, and that is the reason why they char. This is charred and has become black. Another very important thing is that if actually it was the sins of the people who had gathered round and blackened it, Rasulullah would never have kissed it.
No.
So this is the story of Khana Kaaba, around which people from all over the world have gathered. So my message to them is they should understand the history. They should understand the purpose. They should know that they are the people chosen by God to fulfill the ultimate purpose of the creation of Khana Kaaba. And they can only do it by bringing mankind together, not by throwing them apart in the name of coercion, in the name of sword, in the name of so-called holy war. If they put the mankind apart and throw them apart, they will be contributing towards disintegration of society rather than bring them closer and uniting them together. So every Hajj reminds us that we are created for the people. And this message is repeated, what is said in Hajj in relation to the Khana Kaaba. This is repeated in relation to the purpose of Islam and the purpose of this Ummah. kuntum khaira ummatin ukhrijat linnas. Not lil Muslimin, wal Mu'minin, al Arab, lil Ajam. This is the beauty of the Quran. Every style is so correlated, bonded together, that it makes Quran a bunyanu marsus. So all that you interpret from the Quran is supported by the other parts of the Quran. Otherwise anybody could say things from himself. So this is, you can become the best ummah only if you fulfill the purpose of this house, which was created linnas, and you are created linnas. You see?
This is Basair Hazoor.
You see, another consistency in between the Quran and the Holy Prophet and his understanding of the purpose of creation can be found in another hadith which says, Sayyidul Qawmi Khadimuhum. The one who is the leader, true leader, is in fact the one who serves the cause of the people. So why khair? There is a logic. It's not just an arbitrary decision that we have made you the best, so you are the best. As long as you become khadim of the people, linnas means serve the purpose of mankind, become servants of the mankind, automatically you will emerge as leaders. But if you seek leadership just by claims, then you will end up as servants, no more. Servants which are derided, which are looked down upon. But if you love mankind and serve the cause of the mankind, as the Holy Quran reminds you that this is the purpose of your creation, then you don't have to struggle for leadership. It will automatically emerge. You be service-minded, love the humanity, and you will see you end up as khaira ummatin. This is the message which they have forgotten. This is the message which Hajj comes every year to remind them. So for God's sake, for once, listen to it and act accordingly, please. Now I turn to some practices during the Hajj. Although we left with little time, but I'll come to some important central points. The important thing is that all men are required to shave their heads clean when they go to Hajj. They are required not to wear sewn clothes, but just loose sheets, 2 sheets, one for the lower part, one for the upper part. Now what does it remind you of? The first birth. When a child is born, his head is shaved and is wrapped in 1 sheet. And when man parts this world, he is wrapped in 2 sheets. So this reminds you that you are getting closer to the time when instead of 1 sheet you are going to be wrapped in 2 sheets. And shave your head, get rid of the filth, the worldly, that is a symbolic thing. The hair are supposed to be dirty and filthy, but get rid and offer yourself, devote yourself for the sake of Allah. This is the second shaving of the head. Because all over the world, in all religions who have never interrelated with each other, you're surprised to find that shaving of head is related to religious piety and dedication. Nuns shave their heads. The Hindu sadhus shave their head. The Buddhist bhikshus shave their heads. And the Taoists and go anywhere in the world, you will find the shaving of the head as a mark of dedication. Nothing is left, this is yours. So the Hajj reminds us of not only the purpose of mankind as a whole, but the purpose of each individual and his life. You were created for the sake of Allah. If you were not created for the sake of Allah, how the whole mankind could be created? Each drop is designed to be dedicated to God. So remember that when you first appeared in the world, your head was shaven. And you are wrapped in one sheet. Now you are approaching the time when it will be a different story. So instead of going to God helplessly when His power or His decree would anyway take you away, while living, offer it yourself. Submit, ta'an. Don't wait for karhan to take place. This is the message of Hajj, which is very important. So I think because the time is over, so I'll stop it here, and inshallah we'll meet again. Right? And before taking leave, I can greet all the world of Islam and other worlds for whose sake God had built this house. And as parting words, I say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. Assalamu alaikum.